Hi, today we're going to look at how to draw a dinosaur. This might look a little bit complicated, but I'm going to show you different things that you can do along the way. Right, let's go. We're going to do the dinosaur going diagonally across the page. So the nose is going to be up here and the tip of the tail here. So I'm just going to follow along the spine all the way down to this corner. So to start off with, I'm going to leave a space for the nose. I'm going to leave quite a wide space there. And I'm just going to start with the curve for the back of the head. So we're doing that line first, just the curve. And then this line, there's a little bump there. And then it's just going to go straight down into the tail. Just going to turn this round a bit so I can do that line. So this is just going to go, there's a little bump on the spine. And then it goes all the way around into the tail. The next thing we're going to do is just do the other side of the tail. I'm going to have to keep turning the paper to draw this. So this is just going to come back round, and can you see it's gradually getting wider? And then I'm just going to stop there where we've got this big back leg. Right, I'm going to go back up to the face now. So above the eyes, it has a shape that looks a bit like a McDonald's M shape, a little bit wider. And then the nose is like a rectangle shape, but it's curvy on the end. So go down into that curve and then it comes across. And then we've got a big triangle shape here that goes as the mouth's wide open. Just add an extra line there for the mouth, and then the eye is right up here at the top. We're going to do the chin, the jawbone, which is a curved shape here. So this is almost like a semicircle, and then that joins onto the chin. So we've drawn the head and the spine. Next we're going to draw the neck. So to do this, I'm going to follow around this curve halfway along the jaw, and this is just a slightly curved line going down towards where the first two legs are. I'm going to carry this on for the chest. So the first two legs of the dinosaur, we're going to do, it's like an L shape. And it's got a funny, just like two fingers at the end, so that's like a Y. And can you see how tiny these legs are? They're at the front of the body and they're really small. So an L shape, and then it forks into like a Y shape. And then this one's the same. It's just going to look a bit longer because it's a bit nearer. So do the Y shape. And then curve it up like that. And then on the end, we've got these really sharp, like claws, like talons. So I'm just doing, it's like a teardrop shape with a sharp point. So one of those on the end of each part of the leg. The next bit we're going to do is the tummy, and really we want this line to join up with this line, so it's just going to follow. So I'm just going to go past the leg, the tummy goes a bit rounder, and it's heading towards to join up with this line here. The next thing we're going to do is the back legs. These are really big, so I'm going to do a big curve here, and again this leg is going to bend. So watch this shape. A big curvy shape. These legs are so big next to the front legs. And then again, this is quite wide here, bends backwards and comes down towards to where the claws are. And this time there are 3 of them. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3. And then again, we've got these sharp claws. So nice to draw these, especially when we come to do the pen. And then the second leg is the same shape, but it's going to be smaller because it's further away and it's going to be behind where the tummy line is. So curve shape again. That bendy bit on the back of the leg where the knee is. And then down towards the bottom of the foot. And again, we've got the 3 claws. I'm going to do this long one in the middle, little one peeping there behind, and then this one at the front. And then we can just fit in the claws. 1, 2, and then this one we can only see a tiny bit of it, so it's just a little line in the background. I'm just going to go back up to the head. We need to draw in the nostril. And we're going to draw the teeth. This is a nice bit as well, doing some nice sharp pointy teeth. So I'm just going to follow down the jawline, make these nice and sharp.
Okay.
And then around the other side of the jaw, we can just see these other teeth popping up on the other side, so they're kind of in between. And then the same thing at the top. We're going to do these sharp teeth pointing down. So that's the drawing of our dinosaur finished. If you wanted to, you could leave it here and you could either paint this or you could colour it in. I'm going to do some pen on mine, so I'm going to show you how to make some marks. So I've just got some fine line pens, and I'm going to start off by showing you how to do some of the texture. I've just noticed I forgot a little bit here, so I'm just going to do the inside of the mouth curve there. So first of all, I'm going to start off by drawing the scales around the eyes. We want to make this dinosaur look nice and scaly. I've got a very fine pen. If you haven't got a thin felt pen, you could use a biro, that could work quite well. Or you could do this all in pencil if you wanted to. So we're doing like the scales going around the eye. And then up here, we're going to make these scales a little bit smaller. So all I'm doing is just some little curvy, almost like ovally shapes going along the back of the head. This is just so we can have a bit of a contrast between those big scales around the eye and these smaller ones on the head. And we're just going to follow those down the nose. So sometimes you could just do a little curvy, bumpy line. Sometimes you might do an ovally shape, but we want to give the impression of the scales. And then that just follows round towards the mouth. I'm just going to draw in the nostril. So to start off with, it's just going to draw the shapes, and then later on we can go back and do some more details. The eye, I'm going to do the pupil of the eye, and then that iris, that's the round coloured bit. And again, we're going to add some extra lines. Along the mouth, I'm also going to do some big scaly shapes. So hopefully our dinosaur's starting to look a bit more realistic now. I'm just following round the shape with these kind of rectangle-y shapes. And the same along the bottom. So really you could do this however you want to. I'm just giving you an idea. You might have a different way that you'd like to do it. This is just one way that you can create the scales. And then again here under the chin, I'm going to do lots of the little bumpy marks to show the scales under the chin. And then each time before I go on to the next bit, I'm just going around the outline a bit. That just helps us remember where all the different shapes are. And I'm going to go around the teeth. Remember, we want these to be nice and pointy. And the ones at the back. And then these great big sharp teeth at the top. We've done a few details on the head. The next thing I'm going to do is just actually draw around the whole shape. So I'm just going to trace over the lines that I've already done with the pen and go all the way around the whole body. We've outlined the whole dinosaur now, so you can see the shape a bit better. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where I'm going to put the shading that is going to help make it look more three-dimensional. And I'm going to do this by cross-hatching. So when you cross-hatch, is when you do lines going one way. So there's a shadow here under the chin. So this shadow here helps make the neck look like it's further back and the jawbone look like it's further forward. So to cross-hatch, you do lines one way and then you can do them the other way.
Okay.
This is quite a big shadow here. It comes all the way down the neck. And like I say, you can crisscross your lines. Don't worry about what they look like too much because we're going to put scales over the top. There's shadow here on the underside of the leg. And the same on this one. And then crisscross the other way. So hopefully in a minute you should see that even doing this is going to give the dinosaur more shape to its body. There's quite a dark shadow here because this leg is behind, so it's further away. So I'm just doing the same thing, cross-hatching. And then turning the paper to go back the other way. This leg here, most of this leg is in the foreground, so we're just going to put a little bit of shadow here. This is just going to help make this look a little bit more three-dimensional. And then there's quite a dark shadow behind the tail here. So these are helping us create some shape on the dinosaur. The next thing we're going to do is just draw some lines on the tummy, and I'm going to curve these around. This shows that this is a round shape. They're going up the chest, and then we can add a few more scales on the back of the head. Just doing these a little bit bigger now, and then you'll see as we get down the spine, these start to get bigger as there's some quite big scales running along the back of the spine. And then we're just going to follow down this line. They don't all have to be the same shape and size, they can vary. And then keep on going until you get down towards the tail. I'm just going to go back up to the head now and show you how to do a bit of shading. So I'm going to do inside the mouth is going to be really nice and black. We'll just leave a little bit there for some scale showing maybe. So we just have those on the edge. But the rest of this I'm going to do really dark. This is just going to help make it look like the inside of the mouth. And also in between the teeth is going to be dark. And a little bit inside the nostril. When it comes to shading, you need to do this really lightly. So I'm just going to do a few really light marks on these scales up here. If I wanted to make them slightly darker again, I can do a bit of cross hatching, go back the other way. And another good way to shade if you're using pen, you can add a few dots. That just helps add a little bit to the texture and it gives a little bit more shape as well. On the teeth, I'm just going to do a very, very light bit of shading at the top of the teeth. And that's just helping make them look a little bit round as well. A bit more detail on the eye, so we're going to fill in the pupil. If we leave a little white dot, that's going to help make the eye look shiny. And I'm just going to darken around these scales as well here. This is just going to make the eye stand out a little bit more. Maybe shade it in a little bit at the top. And then similarly on the nose, I'm just going to do little bits of shading between some of these scales. So the way I'm doing this, I'm doing little marks like this and then leaving some of it white. So this is, again, this is going to help us create this rough, bumpy skin that we want to show. And then these ones around the mouth are going to be done in a similar way. So don't forget, you can either do lines or you can do dots. Or if you're colouring in with a pencil, you could just do some shading. And for the scales along the back, we're going to do a similar thing. Shades along one side, or sometimes you could do the whole thing so they don't all look the same. And if you want to make the line look darker, just like we said before, go and do a bit of cross hatching. One of my favourite bits to do is to do the claws. So what I'm going to do with the claw, along this outside edge, I'm going to do a little bit of shading. I'm going to leave a white line in the middle, do a little more shading, and then I'm just going to make the line around the outside a bit darker, so that's a bit more solid black. And that gives us that nice effect of the claw. So I'll show you again on this one. So do a light bit of shading along the top and the edge. Leave a white bit in the middle and then get the black edge nice and defined around the outside. You can see we've got a little bit further on here, so I've added a few more scales on the face, done a little bit more shading, and I've started to add scales now over this cross hatching. So all I've done, either little circles or little curvy shapes, and then shaded in between. So really this is the same principle all over the body. So you can see on the arms, first of all I've drawn the shapes of the scales, either little circles or little curves, and then where we did the shading before, just made that shading a little bit darker. And really now you could do as many scales as you want to on your dinosaur. If you want to make it really detailed, like the one I showed you at the beginning, you can do them everywhere. If not, then you can just kind of create the effect by doing some of the scales on different parts of the body. I'm just going to show you a few more details to show you how I got to the finished drawing. One of the things I like to do on the dinosaur, I like to show like the creases in the neck. So I've done some curvy marks coming around. So can you see those marks there are curved? And then again, just do a little bit of cross hatching to show where the shading in this actually makes the skin look like it's folded. So just doing a little bit of shading in between, and then adding in the scales. And the same down here with the arm, there's a crease there, maybe a crease behind that one. And then I did some more creases down here on the leg. I'll just show you this again so that you get the idea. So nice dark creases. Add in some scales. So you can do these all different shapes and sizes, and then do the shading over the top. So remember, if you want it darker, cross the other way, and you can start to get the effect of the creases in the legs. On this part of the leg that was really dark, I did a little bit more cross hatching, and then again just drew in the shapes. These are going to look quite dark now, but that's fine because we want those to be in the shadow. So just drawing those scale shapes on there, and then the lighter scales, I've just literally drawn the shape and then not really shaded so much around those. So that might show us where the light's shining more on the leg. You can see in between each of the claws I've done a bit of shading. The same on this one, that kind of separates out the claws. You can see also on this picture I've done more shading on the tail, so I did it in exactly the same way. Cross hatching one way and then cross hatching the other way. And also you can see I've done these curvy lines coming around here. The reason I've done that is I want the tail to look round. So when I draw the scales, I'm just going to make sure that they follow round these shapes, and it's just going to help create that curvy effect of the tail as we finish it off. So really from here on in, it's up to you how many details you want to put on. If you want to really finish drawing like the one I showed you at the beginning, I just spent more time adding all of the scales in. If you don't want to do all those details, then you can just spread the scales out over the body. Or another thing you can do is just start on your drawing, do some of them, and then maybe come back the next day and do some more. You don't have to finish it all in one go. Sometimes it's quite nice to have a drawing on the go and be able to go back to it and finish a bit more the next day. I'll just show you a few more along the back as well. So what I did along the back, shaded these ones along the top, and then I drew more scales coming down into the body, and then shaded in between those. So again, you could just literally do it where you shade in between them and leave them white, or you can also add a little bit of shading onto them as well. So it all depends how much detail you want. Another thing you could do if you wanted to, you could add some colour on top. If you're using the black pen, it's nice to add colour. You could put some colour in the eye. Or you could add colour onto the scales if you wanted to. So the same principle everywhere. Draw the scales and then do a little bit of shading. Often when I'm doing a drawing like this, I move around to different parts because I just start maybe think, oh, I'll just add a bit on the shadow here, kind of get into doing that for a little while, and then you might feel like you need to change and then move on to something else. If you want the shadow to really stand out, then you can just go back over it and make these lines a little bit darker. And I'm just going to do another claw just because I love doing them. So again, started on the outside, do quite nice light lines, leave a white space in the middle, do a bit of curvy shading on that side, and then do some solid black just to make them really stand out. Don't forget to leave your little white space in the middle, it just really helps get that shiny effect. Here's the finished drawing. So as you can see, I've done lots of details like the dark shadow under the tail, all the little scales, but they're all done in the same way. It might look more complicated, but everything that I've shown you is just repeated over the body. I've made sure that I've left a nice white bit here so the tummy looks white and it stands out. So then we get a nice contrast between the legs and again, like I say, the shadow on the tail, and then these big scales going along the spine. I've done a little bit more work around the eye just to make the eye stand out, so it's a bit darker and a bit more shadow along there, and then just making sure that these creases show up nicely. So I hope you have a go at this. I hope you enjoy it and have lots of fun, and I hope that at the end of it you have a great drawing.